What if the most terrifying places in England are not abandoned, but remembered? Not remembered by history books, but by the spirits who never left. Tonight, you are not just visiting castles, cemeteries, and forgotten streets. You are walking through places where executions shaped destiny, where accusations became death sentences, and where whispers still echo after midnight. 15 locations, 15 stories, told not by historians, but by the ghosts themselves. If you listen closely, you may hear them speaking to you. 1. Tower of London, London. I still remember the first night I stood alone inside the ancient walls of the Tower of London, the old fortress rising beside the River Thames, like a silent executioner. The air felt heavier than it should have, as if the stones themselves were burdened by secrets. This is not merely a castle in London. It is a monument to fear, betrayal, and blood. Kings once locked their enemies here. Queens lost their crowns and their heads within these walls. As twilight faded, I walked across Tower Green, where the scaffold once stood. I knew that in 1536, Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII, was executed on this very ground. History records the event with cold precision. But standing there, I felt something history books never describe. A stillness, a pause in the wind. It was near the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, when I sensed I was no longer alone. Footsteps echoed softly behind me, though the courtyard was empty. For a brief moment, I saw a pale figure in Tudor dress, gliding near the White Tower, her posture regal, her expression distant. Some say her ghost appears carrying her severed head. I did not see that. I saw only sorrow. The Tower of London does not need dramatic sounds or shadows to frighten you. Its terror lies in its memory. Here, ambition ended in execution, loyalty turned to treason, and whispers still drift through the corridors long after the gates close for the night. 2. Hampton Court Palace, London. They say my screams still echo through the gallery. If you walk too quickly along the polished floors of the Hampton Court Palace in London, you may feel a sudden cold rush behind you. That is where I ran. That is where I begged. I am Catherine Howard, once a young Queen of England, the fifth wife of King Henry VIII. I was only a girl when I entered this palace, bright, naive, and unaware that royal walls could become a prison. Hampton Court was magnificent. Vast courtyards, rich tapestries, endless corridors glowing in candlelight. But beauty can conceal terror. When accusations of betrayal fell upon me in 1541, I broke free from my chambers and ran down what you now call the Haunted Gallery. I ran toward the chapel, toward the king, screaming for mercy. Guards seized me before I reached the door. My cries faded into these stones. Not long after, I was executed. Visitors today speak of sudden panic in that corridor. Some hear desperate footsteps. Others claim to see a pale figure in Tudor dress, rushing past before vanishing into thin air. I am not wandering without purpose. I am reliving the final moments when hope slipped from my grasp. As you explore Hampton Court Palace, admire its grandeur, but listen carefully. Stand in the Haunted Gallery and pause. Do you feel a tightening in your chest, a tremor in the air? That is not imagination. This palace remembers fear as clearly as it remembers royalty. And sometimes, when the night grows still, it allows you to remember with me. 3. Pluckley Village, Kent. You may arrive here in daylight and see nothing more than a quiet English countryside village. Narrow lanes, old timber-framed houses, a peaceful churchyard. But when the sun lowers over Pluckley in Kent, the silence changes. I am the Red Lady. They say I wander near St. Nicholas Church, wrapped in crimson, searching for something long lost. Some believe I was buried within 7 coffins of lead, my grief sealed beneath the earth. Yet sorrow is not so easily contained. I rise when dusk settles, drifting between gravestones, my presence felt before it is seen. Pluckley has been called one of the most haunted villages in England, not because of one restless spirit, but many. The screaming man cries from the clay pits. A phantom highwayman waits near Fright Corner. Shadows gather along the railway crossing. 12 spirits, perhaps more, are said to linger here, each bound to a fragment of tragedy. You might dismiss such tales as folklore. After all, villages carry stories the way old wood carries creaks. But if you stand alone near the churchyard at twilight, you may sense the air grow colder than the season allows. You may feel watched, though no window is open. Pluckley does not overwhelm you with terror. It unsettles you slowly. It invites you to question what lingers between history and legend. So if you ever walk these quiet Kent lanes at night, listen carefully. If you hear a distant cry carried by the wind, do not answer. It may not be meant for the living. 4. Pendle Hill, Lancashire. You see only a hill, rolling grass, open sky, mist drifting slowly across the slopes of Pendle Hill in Lancashire. It looks peaceful from a distance, but I remember when this land trembled with fear. My name was Alazan Device. In the year 1612, they called me a witch. I was poor, uneducated, and easy to accuse. One careless word, one misfortune blamed on my family, and suspicion spread like wildfire through the villages beneath this hill. They dragged us to Lancaster Castle. They questioned us without mercy. 12 of us stood trial. 10 were found guilty. They say justice was served, but justice born from hysteria is not justice at all. When the hangman's rope tightened, it did not silence us. It bound us to this landscape. Walk Pendle Hill at dusk, and you may feel it. The weight in the air, the sudden stillness when birds stop singing. Some hikers report shadowed figures standing along the ridgeline when the fog rolls in. Others hear whispers carried by the wind, though no one stands nearby. Pendle Hill is more than a natural landmark. It is one of England's most infamous witch trial sites, a place where superstition overpowered reason. The ground remembers accusation. It remembers betrayal between neighbors. If you climb this hill, pause when the mist surrounds you. Ask yourself, would you have believed the rumors in 1612? Or would you have stood against them? The wind that brushes past your ear may sound like nothing more than nature, but sometimes it carries voices that history tried to silence. 5. Whitby Abbey, North Yorkshire. You climb the 199 stone steps as the wind from the North Sea rises behind you. Before long, the dark silhouette of Whitby Abbey appears against the sky of North Yorkshire, its Gothic arches broken, its towers hollow, its presence commanding even in ruin. I was once a monk here. I lived in silence, prayer, and discipline when these walls still stood whole. But time erodes stone as surely as it erodes faith. Long after the abbey fell into decay, something else began to grow. Stories. In 1897, a writer named Bram Stoker visited this town. He looked upon these ruins and imagined a creature arriving by sea, a dark figure climbing toward the abbey under moonlight. His novel, Dracula, forever bound Whitby to shadows. Yet the legends here are older than fiction. On storm-filled nights, locals speak of a phantom carriage racing along the cliff road before vanishing into mist. Others claim to see a robed figure standing within the empty arches at dusk, watching the horizon where sea meets sky. I do not move. I simply remain. Stand here after sunset and listen. The waves crash below. The wind moves through broken windows like breath through hollow lungs. Do you feel awe or unease? Whitby Abbey is beautiful, undeniably so. But beauty shaped by ruin carries its own kind of fear. If you visit, linger a moment longer than comfort allows. When the fog thickens and the ruins fade into shadow, Ask yourself whether imagination alone creates such presences, or whether some of us have never truly left these sacred grounds. 6. Chillingham Castle, Northumberland. The wind never rests around Chillingham Castle in Northumberland. It moves across the battlements, through the towers, along corridors where torches once burned through endless nights. This castle has stood since the 12th century, near the border between England and Scotland, a fortress shaped by war, imprisonment, and cruelty. They call me the Blue Boy. I was once a child hidden within these walls. Some say I was imprisoned. Some say I was never meant to be found. What they do agree on is this: my cries were once heard echoing through the pink room at midnight. A soft weeping, a flash of blue light, then silence. For centuries, guests reported seeing a glowing figure near their beds before faint screams pierced the dark. Eventually, during renovations, workers discovered the bones of a boy concealed within the castle walls. After I was given burial, the screams lessened, but I did not disappear. Yet I am not alone here. Chillingham Castle carries darker spirits than mine. In the torture chamber below, the air feels heavy, suffocating. Some speak of a nobleman known as the Bloody Butcher, whose cruelty left stains no stone can erase. Visitors describe sudden cold grips around their wrists, unseen presences standing too close behind them. If you walk these halls, you may admire the armor, the portraits, the grand dining room, but stay after dusk. Listen carefully in the pink room. When the lights dim and the castle grows quiet, ask yourself, is that only the wind in the walls, or is someone still waiting to be heard? 7. Barry Pomeroy Castle, Devon. Hidden deep within a wooded valley in Devon stand the silent ruins of Barry Pomeroy Castle. Ivy clings to broken stone. The towers rise without roofs, open to gray skies. From a distance, it looks romantic, almost peaceful. But step beyond the gate, and you will understand why it is considered one of the most haunted castles in England. I am Margaret Pomeroy. They once called me the White Lady. I had a sister, Eleanor. She was beautiful, ambitious, and jealous. When she inherited power, she saw me not as family, but as a threat. She locked me inside the tower, high above the valley. No trial, no mercy, only hunger and darkness. Days turned to weeks. My strength faded. The walls did not answer my cries. When I finally died, it was not by blade or rope, but by betrayal. That is why I remain. Visitors often report seeing a pale woman in white standing in the tower window at dusk. Some feel sudden sadness overwhelming them without reason. Others avoid the deeper dungeons, where another spirit, known as the Blue Lady, lures the curious downward with a sense of uneasy invitation. Barry Pomeroy Castle does not shout its horror. It whispers it. The trees surrounding the ruins seem to lean inward, as if guarding secrets. If you ever explore these grounds, look up at the tower before you leave. If you see a faint figure watching from above, do not wave, do not call out. Some prisons are made of stone, others are made of memory, and I have been confined here for centuries. Blickling Hall, Norfolk. On the night of May 29th, when darkness settles over the lawns of Blickling Hall in Norfolk, the past does not remain silent. The house stands grand and composed, red brick glowing faintly beneath the moon, gardens trimmed with careful precision. It appears dignified, refined. But this estate is said to be my birthplace. I am Anne Boleyn, once Queen of England, once crowned in gold. And on May 19th, 1536, I was executed within the walls of the Tower of London. 10 days later, on the anniversary of my birth, May 29th, legend claims I return here. They say a phantom carriage approaches the driveway at midnight, drawn by headless horses. Inside sits a pale figure dressed in gray. In her lap rests her severed head, eyes open, unblinking. When the carriage reaches the hall, it vanishes into mist. Do I truly appear in such a form? Or has fear shaped the story beyond truth? What remains undeniable is the unease visitors describe. Sudden cold air along the corridors. Portraits that seem to watch too closely. Footsteps echoing where no one walks. Blickling Hall is celebrated for its architecture and history, yet it carries a shadow bound to Tudor tragedy. If you ever visit Norfolk in late May, pause when evening falls. Look down the long driveway as fog begins to rise. If you hear distant wheels upon gravel, ask yourself, are you witnessing legend or remembering a queen who never found peace? 9. Borley Rectory, Essex. They once called this place the most haunted house in England. Before fire reduced it to ruins in 1939, the rectory stood quietly in the village of Borley, Essex, ordinary in appearance, unsettling in presence. I have walked its halls long before it earned its reputation. I am the nun they whisper about. The building known as Borley Rectory was constructed in 1862 beside Borley Church, but legend says that centuries earlier, a convent stood nearby. I loved a monk. We planned to flee together. When our secret was discovered, he was executed. I was sealed within a wall to die slowly in darkness. Whether history confirms it or not, sorrow has a way of attaching itself to land. Residents reported phantom footsteps, disembodied bells ringing, messages appearing on walls pleading for help. Some claimed to see me gliding across the garden at twilight. Others witnessed a headless carriage racing past the rectory before dissolving into night. Investigators came, eager to document the supernatural. Some left convinced. Others accused fraud. The house became a national sensation, its hauntings debated for decades. Yet even after the fire destroyed it, the stories did not burn away. If you had stood outside Borley Rectory after sunset, would you have believed the rumors? Or would you have dismissed every shadow as imagination? Places can vanish. Bricks can crumble. But fear, once rooted, lingers long after the walls are gone. And sometimes, when Essex grows quiet, I still walk where the rectory once stood. 10. Ancient Ram Inn, Gloucestershire. The year was 1145 when these timbers were first raised. Long before modern roads, long before electric light, the building now known as the Ancient Ram Inn stood in the village of Watton-under-Edge, Gloucestershire. It has been a priest's house, an inn, and a private residence. But beneath its floors lies something older, something darker. I was once a child here. They say my bones were found hidden beneath the staircase. Some claim I was sacrificed. Others argue the evidence is uncertain. But uncertainty does not erase presence. Visitors describe this house as suffocating. Floors slope unnaturally. Doorways feel narrow, oppressive. In the bishop's room, people report being pushed, scratched, or held down by unseen hands. Some speak of shadowy figures crouched in corners. Others claim to see a tall, dark shape standing at the foot of the bed. They call it a demon. The land itself is said to rest upon ancient pagan burial grounds. Legends of witchcraft surround the property. Whether these claims are fact or folklore, the atmosphere inside is undeniable. Thick, heavy, resistant to reason. Even experienced paranormal investigators have left in fear. If you stepped inside after nightfall, would you dare remain alone in complete darkness? Would you dismiss every sound as old wood settling? The Ancient Ram Inn does not rely on grand history or royal tragedy. Its terror feels intimate, close, as though the walls lean inward to listen. And when the wind moves through the beams after midnight, it does not sound like air. It sounds like breathing. 11. Corfe Castle, Dorset. From a distance, the ruins of Corfe Castle rise dramatically above the Dorset countryside. Broken towers cut against the sky. Walls stand shattered, frozen in the violence of the English Civil War. Tourists come for the view, for the history, for the beauty of a medieval fortress that refused to surrender easily. But when evening falls, the hill grows quieter than it should. I was a child here during the siege of 1645. Cannon fire shook the stone. Smoke filled the courtyards. We hid in chambers beneath the keep while soldiers fought above us. Hunger came first, then fear. When betrayal opened the gates from within, the castle fell, and not all of us escaped. Visitors now speak of small figures seen near the lower ruins at dusk. Some hear faint laughter carried by the wind, though no families remain on the hill. Others report glimpsing a dark-robed woman walking along the collapsed walls. A nun, they say, wandering long after her convent vanished. Dorset's past is layered with conflict, faith, and loss. And Corfe Castle holds those layers like scars in stone. Stand here when the light fades and the village below grows distant. Listen carefully. The wind moves through the broken arches with a hollow tone, like breath through an empty chest. If you visit Corfe Castle, ask yourself what remains after war ends. Walls can be rebuilt, kingdoms can recover, but some echoes linger. And sometimes, when the hill is wrapped in mist, you may feel as though unseen eyes are still watching from behind the ruins. 12. Highgate Cemetery, London. Beyond iron gates and overgrown pathways lies one of London's most atmospheric resting places, Highgate Cemetery. Opened in 1839 during the Victorian era, it was designed as a grand garden cemetery, filled with elaborate tombs, angel statues, and towering cedar trees. In daylight, it feels solemn. By twilight, it feels watched. I am the figure they call the White Woman. I do not disturb the graves. I simply wander between them, drifting past the Egyptian Avenue and the Circle of Lebanon, where ivy coils tightly around stone. Visitors sometimes see me near the older western section, pale, silent, vanishing when approached. But I am not the only legend tied to this place. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, rumors spread of a tall, dark figure with glowing eyes moving among the graves. Newspapers called it the Highgate Vampire. Crowds gathered. Some claimed to see it floating above the ground. Others dismissed the hysteria as imagination fueled by fear. Yet the story transformed this cemetery into a national obsession. Highgate is also the resting place of notable figures such as Karl Marx, whose imposing monument draws visitors from around the world. History and legend coexist here, side by side. If you walk these winding paths at dusk, notice how quickly sound fades. The city seems distant, muffled by stone and soil. Ask yourself, is it only the power of suggestion that unsettles you? Or is it the awareness that thousands rest beneath your feet? Highgate Cemetery does not shout its horror. It invites you to linger. And sometimes, when the light is nearly gone, you may see a pale figure between the tombs, watching quietly as you pass. 13. Glamis Castle, Scotland. Across the Scottish countryside of Angus rises the grand silhouette of Glamis Castle, a fairy tale fortress of towers and turrets, surrounded by rolling lawns and ancient trees. It is known as the childhood home of the Queen Mother and long associated with British royalty. But beneath its elegance lies something far less refined. I am the one they called the Mad Earl. My true name was Thomas Lyon Bowes, though legend has reshaped me into something darker. They say I was cruel, unstable, consumed by rage. They say I gambled with the devil himself on a Sunday, refusing to stop even when warned of eternal consequences. Whether truth or exaggeration, my spirit is said to remain within these walls. Glamis Castle is filled with sealed rooms, chambers bricked up, their contents hidden from public view. Stories speak of a deformed heir concealed from the world, of a family secret locked away for generations. Visitors and staff have reported sudden cold drafts in empty corridors, the sound of footsteps pacing behind closed doors, and shadowed figures glimpsed in upper windows at night. This castle is not only royal, it is layered with rumor, secrecy, and centuries of whispered speculation. If you stand before Glamis at dusk, admire its beauty. But consider this. Why do some windows remain dark, no matter how brightly the rest of the castle is lit? If you heard quiet knocking from behind a sealed wall, would you investigate or walk away? Some secrets protect reputations, others imprison souls. And in Glamis Castle, not every door was meant to be opened. 14. Mary King's Close, Edinburgh, Scotland. Beneath the busy streets of Edinburgh's Royal Mile lies a hidden world, sealed in darkness for centuries. Tourists walk above it every day, unaware that under their feet survives Mary King's Close, a preserved 17th century alleyway buried beneath the city. Stone rooms, narrow passageways, air that feels unnaturally still. I was a child here when the plague came in the 1600s. The sickness spread quickly through cramped homes and unventilated closes. Families were quarantined. Some never left. Fear moved faster than mercy. Whether we were abandoned or simply forgotten, history does not fully agree. But the silence that followed was absolute. Centuries later, when the underground streets were rediscovered, guides and visitors began reporting strange sensations. Sudden drops in temperature, the feeling of a small hand tugging at their clothing. Objects moved without explanation in a room dedicated to a little girl often called Annie. They leave toys for her now, dolls, coins, small gifts, hoping to comfort a spirit that never grew up. Mary King's Close is not dramatic in appearance. It does not rely on towering ruins or violent legends. Its terror feels enclosed, personal. The walls are close enough to touch. The ceiling presses low above your head. If you descend into those dim corridors, listen carefully. Notice how the air feels heavier than the streets above. Ask yourself, is it only imagination shaped by history? Or is it possible that some of us never truly left the place where fear once sealed the doors? 15. 50 Berkeley Square, London. In the elegant district of Mayfair stands a townhouse once feared more than admired. 50 Berkeley Square. From the outside, it appears no different from its refined neighbors. Tall windows, brick facade, quiet sophistication. Yet in the 19th century, it gained a darker reputation, the most haunted house in London. I remain in the attic room. They say I am not entirely human. Some describe me as a shapeless shadow. Others claim I have glowing eyes and a twisted form. The stories vary, but one detail repeats. Those who dared to sleep in the top room often did not leave unchanged. In 1872, a young nobleman reportedly challenged the legend, determined to spend the night in the attic. By morning, he was found dead, his face frozen in terror. Another visitor survived, but fled in panic, claiming something lunged from the darkness. Newspapers spread the tale quickly. Fear settled into the walls. Was I once a man driven mad within this house? A brother abandoned to isolation? Or merely a rumor that grew too powerful to control? History offers theories, but certainty remains absent. If you stood before 50 Berkeley Square after sunset, would you see only architecture, or would you feel the weight of its reputation? The attic window is often dark, unwelcoming, and if you imagine movement behind the glass, ask yourself carefully, did you truly see something? Or did the legend see you first? The wind has quieted, the shadows have settled, but memory remains. History is not always written in books. Sometimes it lingers in stone, in soil, in silence. If you felt something during this video, even a slight chill, then you understand why these places continue to fascinate us. Fear is not always about danger. Sometimes it is about unfinished truth. If you would like to explore more haunted histories, more forgotten legends, and more places where past and present overlap, you are always welcome here. Thank you for walking through the darkness with me. I will see you in the next story.